Welcome back to Negative Cutters, the movie trailer review podcast. I'm your host, John Beck, and joining me today for the first time on the video show, but a returning veteran of Negative Cutters, John Cash. How's it going, John?
I'm doing fine, John. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to hear your voice and, of course, see you this time. I don't get to look at your pretty face often enough.
Yeah, well, thank God for that.
Yeah. We're going to check out the trailer for Skyfall. That's the latest Bond film, and I'm glad I saved this for you, John, because you are probably our resident Bond expert. Oh, really? I don't know. At least of our, I know you're a big fan of the newer films, right?
Very much so.
Yeah. Does Daniel Craig at this point, is he top of the Bond charts for you, or where does he stand?
You know, this was a tough decision for me, and I'm glad you asked that because I'm sold on Daniel Craig as Bond. Don't get me wrong. Sean Connery was great and everything, but Daniel Craig is the best Bond right now because he is 100% badass, which is what they needed for the franchise.
Yeah, and we're gonna probably talk about that a little bit more because there's definitely some interesting comments in the YouTube channel on the YouTube video for the trailer that talk about the lack of class, I guess, or charm, but we'll get back to that. Okay. Take us, what's the premise for the new trailer, John?
The premise for the new trailer is clearly flying subway cars.
Wait a minute, I don't think where did you get, what?
Well, I mean, I saw like a subway train just like going through the air. Kind of.
Right. Like, doesn't there a movie there where what movie where the subway like explodes and comes up and out? Is that like Speed 2?
No, I think that was.
Or is that
one of those end of the
Die
world
Hard
movies? I think it was 2012, maybe with John Cusack.
Possibly.
Well, from what I can tell from the trailer, it seems as though that. Well, let me just start off by saying, ever since Daniel Craig became Bond, it seems to be this on and off relationship with Q, who's played by Judi Dench, I believe.
M, you mean?
M, that's right. Q is quartermaster. Right. Whereas it's like, are you working for us? Are you not working for us? You know, are you following orders? Are you not following orders? And it seems as though that in this trailer they show 007 maybe supposedly getting killed and then like working undercover. It's who knows what's going on. So
it definitely sounds like there's something very personal kind of going on with M and like her. Like, I know some of the synopsises mention like M's past comes back to haunt MI6 or something like that. So it definitely feels like there's this. They're making it very much centered around M in this movie.
Yeah, it's weird because in the first Daniel Craig Bond, I think he broke into her apartment.
Right. Yeah, they definitely have the. Well, let's talk quickly about what changed. What's different about the Daniel Craig Bond films versus the previous Bond films?
Well, I mean, the previous Bond films, as good as they are, and they're all pretty good, they always had kind of, especially with Roger Moore, they had like this comedic element, like a little bit of humor associated with it.
Yeah.
With Daniel Craig, there's none of that. The other thing I really appreciate about the way the franchise has gone is the gadgets just became unbelievable. Like, for example, when I saw the last one and they had the invisible car, the one with I even want to forget about it. I mean, it was just so ridiculous.
I can't remember. Let's find it here. Bond films.
Well, I know that's the one that they had. They had Jinx, and they were going to like spin off her in a movie.
Die Another Day.
Yeah. When they pulled
that's right, Halle Berry.
Yeah.
Of course, they were going to try and spin off a movie with Halle Berry.
When they pulled out the invisible car, one of the things I appreciated about some of the things in the Bond movies the gadgets weren't over the top. They were actually feasible. I mean, bulletproof glass, some, jetpacks. They were around.
And in these movies, what were the special gadgets in the first two Daniel Craig films?
Nothing. I mean, he had an interesting cell phone where he was tracking somebody in the first one, and he had the Aston Martin that had all the medical stuff in it, and then in the second one, I don't remember really any gadgets that he had at all. And
in this one, we've got a Walther PPK that's got some sort of palm print security. Can we talk a little bit about the fact that, yes, the gadgets are more realistic and not quite out there, but still don't work? Like in the first movie with his little cell phone tracker, they literally said he was using RFID to track somebody. RFID has like this much of a range. I mean, like, and a palm print on a gun. Well, how long did it take a gun to recognize a palm print? Is that not like, it's completely, as far as biometrics go, completely infeasible for a gun to actually be run by some sort of scanning system of your hand? Well, the signature gun is actually from another Bond movie. It's from one. That's what I thought. It's one from I want to say the second one with is it Pierce? No, it wasn't with Pierce. It was with before that. It was wow. I tried to find it because that's the first thing I thought was like, haven't we seen this before? It was in the Living Daylights. Okay. That's with oh man. We're failing here. I know. I need to look him up all of a sudden. Living Daylights. Timothy Dalton. Course. Dalton. Oh, Dalton. My favorite worst Bond. He's, you know what? He really wasn't that bad. I enjoy Timothy Dalton, but I get, people rag on me for it. So. No, what it is, the problem with Dalton as Bond was he got two really kind of crummy stories. One was going after drug dealers that hurt Felix Leiter. And the other one was really kind of a Daniel Craig thing where he was a rogue agent. Yep. And the rogue agent thing, I mean, basically what I feel happened to the Bond franchise is they got their asses handed to them by Jason Bourne. A little bit. And they came back and said, okay, we need to be more Bourne-like. And, even in the comments, we're seeing there are a lot of people who don't want that for Bond. They want the classic Bond. They want the sophisticated Bond. People rag on the Quantum of Solace a lot. I think Craig is sophisticated as Bond. I think he's very, very good. I think he's shown an emotional side from the first movie and then Quantum of Solace. But he really sold me on the character when he showed his commitment to the British government and to his bosses, especially when he had that guy on the roof. And this is where it really sold me. He's like, he says, "Who are you working for?" And the guy doesn't want to answer. The guy, he pushes a little bit further off the side of the building. I asked you who you were working for. The guy doesn't want to answer. So clearly there was nothing else left to do with him besides push him off of the building. Right. And that's when I was like, that's the new Bond. He's badass. All right. So I'm kind of with you. I think it's a very different type of movie. It's the new generation of spy movies, which is grittier, more realistic. Yeah. Something that you would kind of imagine what. I mean, not to the full extent. I mean, definitely it's Hollywoodized, but you could kind of imagine the life of a spy being having to do much more horrible things for your for your country versus walking around in a tuxedo all the time. So they definitely have taken a lot of the ridiculousness out of it. How does this trailer sit with you as far as I don't think this is not a sequel. We're not continuing the storyline of Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace. So what did you think of this trailer? Well, I'm terrified, and let me tell you why. This has been the summer movie that I was expecting, season that I was expecting so much from. Starting out with Prometheus,
fantastic trailer, horrible movie. And then I didn't even go see Batman.
I have yet to see Batman, unfortunately, and I think I've had my expectations tempered enough now where I'm ready to see it and still enjoy it, because I think there's a lot of high expectations of it.
Well, I'm going to see it. So, so when this trailer comes out, of course, I'm giddy for it.
Yeah. Because
it looks fantastic. And then I'm like, well, don't get too excited, because you were excited about The Dark Knight Rising and Prometheus, and both of those movies, well, even though I haven't seen Batman, I mean, didn't really live up to all of the hype.
Critical, yeah. The critical acclaim wasn't so great for them at all.
But the trailer looks great. I especially like the part where the big piece of industrial equipment comes and crushes some sort of a train that he's on or something like that, and it just misses him or something like that. He just walks forward and he straightens his tie. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. So, and I think that's sort of the class of the unflinching sort of, composure amongst utter danger and disaster, and the ability to not blink at that. And I think that's the real signature of the new Bond.
Yeah, and they really kind of lost all of the comedy. There's no comedy at all. Remember the banter and the wordplay with Moneypenny, even her making out to 007 and a holographic thing. And
well, we've even got. I mean, we haven't had Q at all in the last two movies. And we finally get Q back, and John Cleese is gone.
Yeah.
And John Cleese was literally put there for for the comedy. I mean, so we have a younger, probably more naive, a little bit. Q. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that relationship.
And he's been going through some cars.
Yeah.
He's wrecking some cars.
So I'm happy to see that Q's back. We're kind of I think we're sort of rebuilding the Bond sort of family, if you will. I did hear there is a rumor that Moneypenny is in this film, but it hasn't been confirmed yet. So obviously it's not in the trailer or anything like that. So not that we could see, at least. I have to say, the things I didn't like about this trailer were there. There were some moments like that you don't know fear bullshit. That was a little bit more tongue-in-cheek Bond movie one-liner-esque type stuff. And it's they've gone away so far away from that type of stuff that now it feels out of place when they do it.
Well, the thing, I think I know what you're referring to. And it looks like they had him tied up to a chair again. Which, you remember how that went the first time?
Yeah, I guess. Well, what do you think? The thing that most impressing about the trailer is now I feel like this trailer is all about introducing a new villain. It's all about back to classic Bond of here's a classic Bond villain. So what do you think of the new villain?
Well, I actually hope it's a continuation of the Quantum of Solace.
It is officially not.
It really? Okay, because there were a lot of things that were what is this new organization? Who are these people? Blah, 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 blah.
I've read that they've talked about coming back to the Quantum organization at some point and maybe having another movie that sort of caps it as a trilogy. But
somebody petting a cat, Number 3, kill Bond now.
I'm not dead yet. So we've got Javier Bardem, the guy from was it
No Country for Old Men?
Yep.
Yeah. I am very excited. This is a villain that doesn't seem to have a bullet in his head and bleed when he cries, or there was always something kind of crazy wrong with each villain. He seems to just be except for the Christopher Walken villain, who was just a homicidal maniac.
Well, I think this is going, well, not necessarily homicide. This guy just seems like a sociopath. It just seems just it feels like they're getting a villain that is hardcore enough to match Bond at this point. Because, I mean, you know, with the way that Bond has been made out in the past couple movies, you need somebody who trumps that.
Well, I mean, look at it this way. In the first movie, he was going to marry Vespa, and she ended up being like the complete opposite of what he expected, even though she still loved him. And then, you know, she died. And then second movie, you know, who didn't die in that way?
Right.
You know, I mean, he almost, you know, he survived. And of course, you know, the female lead survived. But I mean, like, everybody was like catching on fire or getting shot around him and this, that, and the other.
That was basically, that was like the Bond version of Hamlet.
With everybody telling him how cool Vespa was at the same time. You know, Bond villains are always, there was only really like a couple of them that actually really scared me, and they ended up being like not, you know, that bad, you know, either like a bad shot or like make a stupid mistake or what have you. And it also makes me think about The Incredibles. Oh, you got me dialoguing. Oh, you know, or something from Austin Powers. No, kill him now. Why just kill him? Put a bullet in his head and get it over with. It's like, no, I'm going to put you in this shark tank on a timer with the, you know. No, I mean, he looks pretty. They don't really show the villain that much. They don't really show him doing like horrible things. They just show like 007 in peril and, you know, cars and motorbikes and this, that, and the other. So
I think it's more the casting. It's basically they're saying, like, here he is. It's Javier with blonde hair, which looks a little weird, but it's kind of, he definitely has sort of a menacing aura about him. And I think, judging by what we've seen in other movies of him and what he can do, I think it's going to be a really interesting choice for a Bond villain. I hope it is.
Well, his hair looks like Heat Miser. And, and I mean, in No Country for Old Men, where he was like a total, you know, crazed killer for the most part, did he have like 2 pages of dialogue in the entire movie? He barely said anything.
But that's what my hope is, that there isn't, you know, that this villain doesn't spend the entire time talking, you know, like most Bond villains do. But look-wise, he definitely looks the part of a Bond villain. Like, he looks like classic, you know, he looks like something out of the 70s, you know, Bond films.
You're right, because the last guy didn't.
Yeah.
The last guy just looked like some schmo. You know,
this actually looks like some, you know, like, I don't want him to be ridiculous, but he looks like he's like, you could believe he has, you know, plans to somehow destroy the world or whatever the hell's going to happen, you know, which is, I don't know. There's a skepticism in me about Bond films at this point, that there is an expected ridiculousness of them. And
that's another good point, because what they've done with the last 2 movies is not do what they used to do with the entire previous franchise. Oh, and I heard somebody describe it coming out of the movie one time. It's like, oh, I didn't think it was going to be another one of those, oh, there's a big gun in the sky, you know. Right. You know, oh, no, it's going to be nuclear war.
Oh, no, he's going to boil the oceans.
Oh, yeah, oh, it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
You know, oh, thank God for the British Secret Service.
I have a feeling, though, it feels like this is going back to those a little bit. It feels like this movie is coming back out of sort of the darkness of these last 2 into a somewhat more standard. But at the same time, we've got this really personal sort of storyline with them. So it'll be interesting to see. Let's take a look at what the trolls have to say. I've got one of the many YouTube pages up for the trailer. And we've got, let's see. The Mass Effect 3 fan says, I'm excited for the new Bond movie, but I would have liked old Q instead of the young guy. Maybe somebody like Jeffrey Rush. I believe he would make the best Q, but I willingly to give this guy a chance. aside from the typos, I'm okay with this Q. What about you?
He's in the trailer for 12 seconds.
Yeah.
15
yeah, but 12 seconds, I mean, that's a big part of a trailer. Like, they actually, like, legitimately introduce him. I mean, we don't see that much interaction, but the actor, who was that guy? He was in, he played Ariel in Julie Taymor's rather horrible version of The Tempest. He was in something else more recently, though. Ben Whishaw.
Oh, is that the guy?
He was the guy from Perfume.
He looks like a Ben Whishaw. You know, I mean, they're clearly reintroducing the franchise. They're reintroducing all of these characters. I have no problem with Q being, like a really good and fun actor. What I just don't want is the gadgets to play a major role, or I don't want lasers coming out of watches. I don't want invisible cars anymore. They can make Q, like a woman, or they can make Q, a talking panda for all I care. Just don't ruin what you've got. You've got a great formula. Let's just stay on track with that.
Okay, so here's a weird comment. Majafaja 999 says, all right, Bond is considered a rogue agent by his agency after Quantum of Solace and ends up losing his position. Batman takes the fall for Dent's murders. Bond fakes his death to live a new life. Batman goes into retirement for 8 years. Bond is called back into duty because Q's life is in danger. I think that's M's life is in danger, but whatever. Gordon is shot and needs the Batman. Bond is broken but retrains himself to regain his 007 status again. Bruce in the pit. The Dark Bond rises. I think there's some interesting parallels, but I don't think they're trying that hard. Like, there are very specific themes that Christopher Nolan hits and sort of hammers at a little bit in his Batman trilogy that I just don't think they're thinking that strongly about in this. What do you think?
The messed up thing about all of that is, what if that guy's right?
It could be.
I mean, can you imagine putting Batman and James Bond in the same movie? Like, who's not going to go see that?
I'm James Bond.
Bring it to me.
Someone says Quantum of Solace was terrible. This looks like a James Bond movie. And I think we've sort of said that. This looks like more of a classic James Bond film.
You know what? Everybody says, well, not everybody. A lot of people say that they didn't like Quantum of Solace, that it was bad. And I'm operating on a presumption that has to do with the element of mystery, the element of things that you don't know about this organization that are clearly trying to take over the world, I guess. But
if there's so much setup and all this mystery, it should have been immediately followed by a capper. Like, it, you know what I mean? Like, this movie should end those things and just make it a nice little trilogy and a storyline. But they're letting that just float away. I feel like, again, it almost seems like the producers, and not that there's one set of producers, but the studio is reacting with the Bond films. They reacted to the the Bourne series and put in Daniel Craig, and now they let their guy go down a path, and it got a big reaction from the fans. Not many people, liked Quantum Solace. So now they're going back and saying, okay, forget that plot line. We'll come back to it later. Let people forget about that. We're going to give you a nice, normal Bond movie.
The other scary thing about it is the movie's coming out next month.
Yeah.
I mean, they usually save the dogs for like the end of summer. No offense, Rover. They save the dogs for the end of summer. And then like towards the end of the year, that's when they're like putting on their, tentpole, big Oscar winner, big, movies that they want to be blockbusters.
I think
right. Blockbusters aren't blockbusters when they come out. They make a lot of money and then they become blockbusters.
But so this is coming out November 9th, and I think that's actually the right time for this. I think the November is a good time for this movie because this cannot compete with the types of movies that were coming out this summer.
They normally come out, the Bond movies, I think one of the last two came out at Thanksgiving. I think the other one came out about the same time. So
yeah, these are your holiday action movies that that it's out during a time where there's not that much competition for this type of movie. I don't think that makes it necessarily a bad movie, but I don't think a Bond film can compete with the likes of all the comic book movies right now.
That's true.
It's going to get destroyed. So I don't know. I'm interested to see, John Cash, when are you going to see this movie?
Opening fucking night. Opening weekend. I'll definitely be there.
I know. I'd like to see this in the theaters, but it's not going to happen. This is not the type of movie that I'm going to be able to convince my wife to go see. So I think for me, this is probably watch it as soon as I can get access to it. Okay. Whether it's rental or whatever, I'd be itching to see it. But I think this can wait for me personally. But I think I would recommend most people just see it in the theater. It's a type of movie with this type of action, I think that also is amplified by the audience, kind of like how comedies are amplified by the audience. I think the action and the over-the-top sort of like grittiness of the movie is going to be amplified by the shock and awe of those around you as well.
I want to say that the first Bond movie that I ever saw in a movie theater was Live and Let Die.
Yeah.
And I want to say that I've seen every Bond film in a movie theater since Live and Let Die.
And you feel like that is the appropriate venue for a Bond film?
Either that or a marathon on BBC. Yeah.
All right. So, you're welcome to take John's advice, and I would recommend go check out in the theater. It looks like a great movie. I have some trepidations about the trailer, but all in all, it's a good trailer. It looks like a good direction for the film. Maybe try and balance what the last two have done with what we normally expect, and we'll see where it goes. Until next time, I'm John Beck. You can catch me online at twitter.com/Copperdome. And how about you, John?
You can reach me at twitter.com/ThinkPip.
All right, and that'll do it for us today. We'll see you soon. John will be with us for another couple of trailers, so check the YouTube channel for that. And otherwise, have a good night, everybody.